So I think, as far as I know, today is the last day of the ceasefire. This is really weird because the markets are out there, people. The markets are out there and they are protecting us. They are awake, they are alive, and they are protecting us right now. So today being the last day of the ceasefire, I'm a little conflicted. I think the markets are going to protect us. I think they are. I believe in the markets, and you should too. If you are not out there praying to the markets and lending the markets your strength, I'm going to hold you personally responsible if this ceasefire falls through tonight and America starts bombing Iran again. But yeah, so apparently, the ceasefire is supposed to end tonight. I think America seized another ship or something since the last time we talked. The blockade of the blockade is back on. Both blockades are back. Blockadeception, you know, it's insane, but okay. And now here we go. Let's go ahead and check in on this. So this is from CNN. This is from 3 hours ago. It says, Trump says he expects to be bombing if no Iran deal is reached. Let's see what they have to say over at the Clinton News Network.
US President Donald Trump says he expects to continue bombing Iran if the US cannot reach a deal to extend the ceasefire by a Wednesday evening deadline.
Well, I expect to be bombing because I think that's a better attitude to go in with. But we're ready to go. I mean, the military is raring to go.
I don't think that's the best attitude to go in with. I think the best attitude is like, we're going to try to do everything we can to get a ceasefire across the finish line. I think that's a much better attitude to go in with. But okay, cool. Let's keep going.
US President Donald Trump speaking to CNBC, the vice president due to leave for Pakistan soon, where extreme uncertainty awaits. Preliminary talks have been happening for days, but Iran still has no clear indication if its negotiating team will sit down with the Americans. Let's get you to Washington and to Kevin Liptak. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, we still expect J.D. Vance, the vice president, to depart sometime relatively soon from Washington to head from Islamabad. Our understanding is that he has not left just yet, but that interview that the president is still doing right now on CNBC, quite revealing in terms of his approach and attitude to these negotiations. He's feeling very bullish in terms of a deal, but at the same time making clear that
Trump is all over the place. Like, he is all over the place. I don't know. I've read some of the stuff coming out about how he's been behaving behind the scenes, which really isn't that surprising to me or any of you if you've been watching. He is going back and forth, like because I think that we're seeing what has actually happened is that America is incapable of winning this war. And so Trump is just trying to figure out some way to manufacture a victory out of this. And that's why he keeps like going back and forth on like, oh, we need Iran's oil out into the markets. We need to unsanction it so that that pressure is lifted off of us. And then oh, actually, no, now we're going to blockade it all entirely. And then, oh, actually, now it's open, and then, oh, actually, no, we're still going to blockade everything for Iran. Like, he just keeps going back and forth. And I think that he's just going to continue finding himself in a position because there's no actual strategic way for him to get into a better position, given the conditions on the ground with what Iran was able to accomplish militarily, that like the only possibility is if he is able to like that this negotiation is going to go anywhere, is if he is somehow able to maybe get something similar to the JCPOA that he can spin to his base and stuff to be a win. Even if he spends it to his base and like Fox News is a win, though, I think the vast majority of like liberal institutions are going to call it a L. So I don't know. Even then, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I also think that Iran itself is probably going to show up, I think, to the negotiations, or at least send some sort of delegation. Even if the IRGC command structure doesn't really want, or like I don't know. I think that they're still probably going to try to at least pretend to be in good faith going, or at least show that they, want some sort of diplomatic resolution. But I think that the problem just always comes back to the facts on the ground like lend towards Iran having a much stronger bargaining position. And every day going forward, as long as the Strait of Hormuz is completely closed, leads to Iran getting even more and more of a strong bargaining position. So the longer this goes on, the worse strategically America is going to be in. And the worse the outcomes are going to be. But that doesn't jive with the, like the hyper patriotic, like ubermensch personality that Trump is trying to like portray. And so that juxtaposition is going to lead to like just, I think, a very long conflict, if I had to guess.
He doesn't plan to extend that ceasefire, which he says will expire tomorrow evening, and essentially says he has his finger on the trigger in terms of resuming this conflict if a deal cannot be reached. Listen to a little bit more of how he characterized the state of these talks.
What I think is that we're going to end up with a great deal. I think they have no choice. It is regime change, no matter what you want to call it, which is not something I said I was going to do, but I've done it. Indirectly, maybe, but I've done it. And I think we're in a very strong negotiating position to do what other presidents should have done during a 47-year period.
Now, the president in this interview said that he would be not rushed into a deal, essentially suggesting that he's not looking for something quick and dirty. He wants something that he can come out and proclaim as a good deal for the United States. I think.
By the way, the JCPOA took 10 years to negotiate. So, and that was with like a competent administration. This one is like his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and JD fucking Vance. Like, I don't know. I don't have hopes that they're going to be able to come to some sort of actual deal here.
All of that sort of belies the president's political positioning here. You know, he recognizes that this war is unpopular in the United States. It's a war that he said would have been finished by now. And when you talk to officials here at the White House, they make clear that the president recognizes that this war is politically damaging for him. And there, despite what he's saying here, not a lot of attitude for resuming it. And so as the vice president prepares to depart here, for Pakistan, of course, the question is what exactly this deal that the president thinks he can secure looks like. What is the concession on nuclear enrichment? What happens to the nuclear stockpile of highly enriched uranium? All of these questions that were sticking points during the first round of talks led to no deal being produced there and remain sticking points now. Of course, President Trump very confident that he was able to come up with something that doesn't resemble the Obama-era deal that he withdrew from, that he continues to decry. But I think very interestingly,
I think if there's going to be any deal, I think it's going to look very similar to the JCPOA. In all honesty, I think it'll be worse than the JCPOA. I think that Iran will get okay. The conditions are leading towards Iran getting some form of sanctions relief, whether that's through tolling in the Strait of Hormuz or what, I don't know. But Iran militarily controlling the Strait of Hormuz indefinitely. And a new status quo in the region where people are going to be very hesitant to keep maintaining U.S. bases on their soil. Like that's kind of where I think the actual facts on the ground are leading. America could never stomach that though, or the ego of America can't stomach that. But the problem is that the facts on the ground don't care about the feelings of America. So the worse the conditions get, or the worse the negotiating conditions get for America as time goes on, and as the global economy goes down the shitter, and westernized countries start having rolling blackouts, like when the EU, like Germany or something, starts having rolling blackouts, or is only allowed to drive their car on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. All of these things are going to put immense amounts of pressure on the United States. I don't have any faith that I don't know. I have no faith that they're going to be able to recognize the position they're in. This right now, even though they're in an incredibly weak position, America is probably the best conditions that they are going to have for negotiating going forward. Every day that this goes on, as long as the strait is completely closed, is going to increase the pressure on them, which was why it's such a dumb fucking mistake to not just open up the blockade whenever Iran said that they were gonna reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
President really putting a lot of stake into his own negotiating prowess, saying, somewhat preposterously, that he would have won the Vietnam War very quickly if he was president. So altogether, a portrait of a president quite confident in his ability to bring this war to an end, quite confident in his ability to secure a deal that's good for the United States, but also
something that I think a lot of people don't understand, that these types of long-term strategic outcomes of geopolitics are not something that any one man changes. There are forces at play that are the coalescing of hundreds of years of decisions of thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals that are leading to these strategic icebergs that are slowly moving in one direction or another. Same with when I talk about the decline of the global empire. This is not something that one man is ever going to be able to change, or even one group or one party or anything. These are huge, colossal movements of history, essentially, that are on a trajectory, and changing them needs an intense amount of effort and power and all of that stuff, that they're just kind of on collision courses, essentially. So when Trump says things like he would have changed the outcome of the Vietnam War, no. The outcome of the Vietnam War was written decades before the Vietnam War even happened. And same with what's happening right now. The outcome of this was written decades before this even happened. So yeah, that's just a silly way of understanding contemporary society. If you look through the long arc of history, it's just a bunch of glaciers bumping into each other, moving very slowly in one direction. And I don't know, there's not much you can do about it.
So one who continues to threaten a resumption of this war if these talks don't produce a deal.
We are still expecting Vice President J.D. Vance to leave for Pakistan for peace talks with Iran. Right now, he is still in Washington, set to take part in White House meetings. When or if he's going to leave is still unclear. If there's no deal, a fragile ceasefire will expire tomorrow night. And yet this morning on CNBC, President Trump said,
okay, for some reason I kept thinking it was tonight. Okay, well, it's tomorrow night, people. Okay, we got one more day.
The war is already won.
We've totally won the war. We have totally beat them militarily and otherwise.
Oops.
And then he said this.
I want to make a good deal. I'm not going to be rushed. I have all the time in the world. I want to make not a good deal. I want to make a great deal.
You do not. The Strait of Hormuz being closed means that you do not have all the time in the world. You have maybe a couple weeks before a lot of your allies and partners start, and capital owners who have access to a phone line directly to the president that nobody else has access to. They will be calling and make the boss call to be like, hey, you got to wrap this up. So you do not have all the time in the world.
Josh Dawsey, the war is won, and yet he wants to make a good deal. Translate.
I don't know that I can translate, other than the president's clearly been frustrated in recent weeks that he and the military aren't getting enough credit for how much they've done to dismantle the Iranian military and the Navy and what they've done. But this war, according to public polls, is not very popular, right? And a lot of his advisors have been pushing him to look for a way out. We have to have a way to get the strait open. We have to have gas prices to go down significantly because, the midterms are coming up. A lot of folks are feeling the heat on that. And there's a lot of pressure you feel inside the White House when you talk to people about finding a way to get out. So the president's never going to say, this isn't going well publicly. He's going to say, look at all we're doing and look at these stats and look at this and we've totally won. But you're also seeing a lot of internal angst about, how do they extricate themselves from this prolonged conflict that's dominating the headlines, dominating everyone's attention, causing some public erosion and support. I mean, they're looking for a way out.
We talked on the show about your terrific story over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal, and we talked about your anecdote.
Yeah, I didn't read this story, but I've heard people talk about it. So I hope they'll give some, some quotes from it and stuff. Because I would like to talk about it a little, but I didn't find any particular. I couldn't find any particular stories on YouTube just dedicated to that, and I didn't really want to read the entire article. So hopefully they'll get some quotes in here.
About why and how the president got to the point where he posted something about Allah in Truth Social. But there's something else that I want to drill down.
Yeah. Have you considered that he has joined the great faith of Islam? Maybe that's what happened. He had a temporary Allah temporarily infiltrated Trump's brain and like put that in the tweet on Easter Sunday. I don't know, could have happened. Who knows people.
On a great anecdote in here, and I'm going to read it. This is during the capture, while these two airmen were captured behind enemy lines. Trump demanded that the military go get them immediately, but the U.S. hadn't been on the ground in Iran since the government's overthrow that led to the hostage crisis, and they needed to figure out how to get into treacherous Iranian terrain and avoid Tehran's own military. Aides kept the president out of the room as they got minute-by-minute updates because they believed his impatience wouldn't be helpful, instead updating him at meaningful moments.
Always great. Always a great sign when the person with the button, the nuclear buttons, is forced out of the room by the big boys, the people with big boy pants on, so that they can actually discuss strategy of like what to do in this situation where you're going to get this definitely real person who's over across enemy lines. Yeah, it's always a good sign when you have to put the boss out of the room so that you can actually get stuff done. But yo, Clay, how's the news today? The news is, it's okay. We're just getting into it. We're talking about Iran right now, ma'am. Everybody's favorite country and content. So
Yeah, so what we're reporting there is that for all day on Saturday, the day before Easter, senior White House officials, military officials, everyone called into the Situation Room. And the president was agitated about finding these guys. And he turned to his aides and said, go get them, right? They're two troops. They're down in Iranian territory. But he's not in the Situation Room and he's not with them. And it's not, I think that I've seen some folks on Twitter and on the left say, oh, all of these different theories. It's more, the president's an
Guess what, ma'am? For being a valued member of this community from the very beginning, you are now a moderator. If you want to ever help me out and kick out the hooligans, you're more than welcome. I'll leave, the judgment in your hands if you decide to or not.
Impatient guy. When he wants something done immediately, when he is in the mood to have something his way, he wants it done immediately. And so they left him out of the room because I think they were trying to, they knew this was going to take a long period of time, but there were going to be fits and starts. Obviously the planes went down at one point in the sand and they couldn't get them, up. The guy crawled 7,000 feet up in the mountain, the guy who they were looking for. I mean, there were all sorts of treachery.
I kind of talked about it the other day, but I've started to lose faith in the story that there was actually a person out there, primarily because they haven't shown him to me yet, or they haven't even had interviews with him or anything. It's just he fell off the face of the earth as soon as this happened. So I'm starting to lean more towards the conspiracy theory that they were actually trying to get the nuclear dust, as Trump likes to call it, and just completely failed. It's kind of what I'm starting to lean towards when it comes to that whole story. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
The guy crawled 7,000 feet up in the mountain, the guy who they were looking for. I mean, there were all sorts of treacherous things
they didn't want to be distracted by his impatience.
And they wanted him to get sort of regular updates, but not to be in the room for every single particular thing.
It's a very telling anecdote. Let's go back to where we are right now, which is, a holding pattern still. But just talking about what the president has said, maybe in the past day or two, as he tries to continue to push the narrative of the war is won and everything's going to be fine. These are statements that the President of the United States has made that are just not accurate. Vance would not join the second round of negotiations. Well, We'll see. Maybe they'll pull him, but that's not the plan right now. Vance was heading over to Pakistan on Monday. It's Tuesday. He didn't go. Strait of Hormuz is completely open, and Hormuz Strait situation is over. We all wish. Iran agreed to turn over its enriched uranium. Iran's military is gone.
Yeah, and listen, some of this is him trying to make the markets respond
Yes.
and respond
true.
positively.
That's something that we don't talk about a lot, is that a lot of this could, like this back and forth, wishy-washy, like statements and stuff that, it could potentially just be market manipulations for him and his buddies as well. That's, I don't know. I usually think that there's like bigger, like, I kind of don't tend to think that that's like the only reason that they're ever doing this stuff, because these things are like very important and big decisions to make. But with this presidency, I don't know. Anything's possible. But yeah, the markets, the markets are who protect us during the week when they're awake, though. Okay, so I still have faith in the markets, even if their markets are being manipulated. It's not the market's fault that they're getting manipulated. Okay, so it's okay to still have faith in the markets, people. They will protect us.
And some of this is him trying to move the negotiations along. I think, unfortunately, some of this has angered the Iranians, right? This idea that, they've turned over their enriched uranium, for instance, or agreed to do that. That is a huge sticking point, as is the Strait of Hormuz. So this is a president, I mean, some of this feels like deja vu.
Well, they're not even talking about some of the other stuff that Iran wanted, such as discussions on the bases in the region, or reparations, like all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I just think that the primary problem hasn't been resolved, and that Iran on the battlefield is in a much better place strategically than America is. But America is unable to acknowledge that due to its hubris and global superpower status, and acknowledging that would be a huge defeat for just the American imperial machine. So in the end, that conflict is the primary thing that is going to determine that internal conflict inside of America, I think, is going to be the primary thing that determines the outcomes of the war. And that conflict is only going to get worse as time goes on and Iran's strategic position goes up even higher. That's my high level overview of what I think is going to happen here.